We're recording live on YouTube and through Zoom as a backup.
All right, great. Then we'll go ahead and call the June 22nd, 2021 meeting of the Oregon City Historic Review Board to order. First, we'll ask if there are any public comments related to topics not on the agenda this evening. All right, hearing none, we'll move into the public hearing portion of the agenda. There are 3 public hearings on land use applications scheduled tonight. Our role is to conduct the public hearing and to make decisions about the matter before us. In making those decisions, we must apply the applicable codes and laws and cannot vary from or change those laws or codes. Members of the Historic Review Board are to be unbiased. Before the start of the hearing, I will ask each Historic Review Board member whether they have any potential conflicts, such as family, financial, or business relationships with any of the applicants or with regard to the land in question. I will also ask whether any of the Historic Review Board members have discussed the application in question with any of the parties or have independent knowledge of relevant facts, such as from a visit to the site in question. Any member of the audience may question any Historic Review Board member about their disclosures. A staff report has been prepared for each application and has been made available to the public 7 days before the first public hearing. The staff report identifies the approval criteria that apply to each applicant's proposal. Staff has analyzed the criteria which are contained in the staff report. The quasi-judicial hearing procedure that the Historic Review Board will follow is set out in state law and the Oregon City Municipal Code. The hearing procedure steps are shown on the Historic Review Board website. Public testimony will be called on in the order it was requested in advance of the meeting. If you have not emailed city staff at planning@orcity.org to request to speak and would like to testify, please raise your virtual or physical hand when I ask if there are others in the audience who would like to participate. For the public record, please begin all testimonies stating your name and city of residence. If you would like to receive a copy of the notice of decision, please state your mailing address or email address. Testimony and evidence should be directed toward the applicable approval criteria. If you believe other criteria apply in addition to those addressed in the staff report, identify and discuss those criteria and explain how and why you believe they apply to the application under consideration. Any person may submit written material while the public record is open on each application. Any written materials received by the city staff during the time period in which the record is open will be placed in the record. Written materials submitted during the public hearing must be presented to the city staff in order to become part of the record. If a person intends for PowerPoint presentations, reports, pictures, or other exhibits used in their oral testimony to be placed in the record, copies must be submitted to the city staff while the record is open. If they're not given to staff, they will not be included in the record. Any person wishing a continuance to present additional evidence and testimony or to keep the record open to respond to new evidence must make that request before the public testimony portion of the hearing is closed. If the Historic Review Board makes a decision with which you disagree, any issue that you may wish to appeal must have been raised on the record for the consideration of the City Commission or the Land Use Board of Appeals, or both. Without raising the issue on the record with sufficient detail and accompanied by statements or evidence that the city and all parties can respond to the issue, will not be deemed appealable to the City Commission or State Land Use Board of Appeals. In addition, the failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient detail to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. All right, now we'll open the record for Oregon City file number GLUA 21-00028, HR 21-00011, and HR 21-00012, historic review for preservation incentive and demolition request in the Kenema National Register District. I'll ask each historic review board member if they have had any ex parte contacts, conflicts of interest, bias, or any other statement to declare, and have visited the site. If there was a site visit, I'll also ask the historic review board member to declare what he or she has perceived. Board member Edgar, have you?
Yes, I would like to make a comment. Yes, I have been to the site. Yes, I have in the past talked with on this line. I feel like that I have not compromised myself in any way to be in a position where I could not render an appropriate decision.
All right, and board member Ferry.
I do not have any conflicts, or I have had no contact, but I also have not visited the site.
All right, and I have visited the site, but do not have any ex parte contacts or conflicts to declare. Does anyone in the audience wish to question any of the historic review board members about these disclosures? Okay, we'll now commence with the staff's planning staff's report.
Thank you, Chair Blythe. This application, so there are two applications, one for demolition review and one for preservation incentive. And these are both related to a previous HRB review in 2019 for a new house in Kenema, along with a detached garage with an ADU above the garage. So the application overall in 2019, HR 1905, I believe it was approved by the board. And so what the applicant is doing with this application is following up on one of the conditions of approval from 2019, which was to close the loop on the demolition of a shed that had occurred on the property previously without board review. So the shed was not a contributing structure, and it was in disrepair. And the applicant, I'm not sure if it was the applicant or the previous owner, but the shed was removed in 2018 before the review was made. And the board, it wasn't included in the review at the time. I think we just didn't realize that that had been done already. And so the board just required as a condition of approval to formally request approval for the demolition and formally get the board to sign off on that demolition that occurred. The second part of the application is related to one of the setbacks of the detached garage structure. So the code allows for preservation incentives awarded by the board, which essentially means setback exceptions or exceptions to any of the dimensional standards in the underlying zone. So the underlying zone here is R6, and for detached accessory structures in the R6 zone, if they are under 600 square feet in footprint and under 17 feet in height, then our code allows them to be set back just 3 feet from the property lines on the side and in the back. And that's a citywide provision. This structure is actually 19 and a half feet. So it's taller than that 17-foot limit. And the 3-foot setback isn't available. And so instead, the code requires that any building above that 17-foot height limit has to meet the underlying setbacks in the zone for any larger structure, and that would mean a 20-foot rear setback. What's been approved already by the HRB in 2019 is a setback of, I actually think the board approved a 5. I think the discussion back in 2019 was a 5-foot setback in the back. And the plans have been adjusted very slightly because of geologic hazard review and just the nature of these projects, the preliminary plan is now a final plan, and the setback is now proposed to be 7 feet from the rear property line. So it's actually getting farther away than what the board originally approved. The problem here, the reason that the applicant is here before you today is that the board did not approve a preservation incentive along with the 2019 approval. So at the time, staff didn't flag that preservation incentive would be needed in the future. And then, it wasn't brought up by anyone else either throughout the process. And so I think what happened is we didn't really have a discussion about exactly how tall that structure was. What the board was concerned about back in 2019 is the height of the structure as it relates to the height of the primary dwelling, the home. And at the time, the board wanted to make sure that the ADU garage combination was not taller than the house itself. And so that was met and the board was satisfied. And so we didn't really talk about what the overall height of each structure was. So this preservation incentive issue did not come up in the past. So the applicant is back before you to formally request that preservation incentive to allow the building permits to be issued and to allow this project to be built. I think I covered everything, but are there any questions, and does anyone want to see site plans or any other information? So I'm happy to share some of the images that are in the staff report.
May I ask, what is the height from the in relationship to the ground level? If I understand this, garage is cut into the bank, and there's a retaining wall effectively that's part of the garage. Is that correct?
Yes. So the way we measure height is from the street facing facade. So the garage, it's the side of the garage because it's side oriented garage. But the height there is 17 feet. Now, if you go to the rear property line 7 feet away, there's a significant grade change, like you said, Paul. And I can pull up the maps to get to exactly what we have on file as that grade change. But the property line where it's going to be 7 feet away is actually a lot higher than the subject property. So the structure will actually look more like a single story structure from the back, from behind this site. And so that's one of the reasons in the staff report that I'm recommending approval, is that not only is this already approved, essentially the overall site plan was already approved, but the impacts of it are negligible on neighboring properties, and it actually makes for a more compatible site layout because it allows the garage structure to be separated more from the main dwelling on the site. Let me pull up the elevation measurements here. Yeah, it looks like there's about a 8 to 10 foot difference from the footprint of the garage to the property behind it.
Well, if there's no other comments, I move for approval as to the request made by our.
Paul, we will take public testimony first,
Okay.
Before we move into that.
Okay.
But if there are any other questions for staff, then we'll move on into that public testimony. All right, just as a reminder for everyone, the applicant has up to 15 minutes, although they likely don't need to use it. In addition, we'll have 5 minutes for any representatives of recognized neighborhood associations, government agencies, or other incorporated public interest organizations. 3 minutes for individuals and up to 5 minutes for the applicant's rebuttal to any of those other public comments if necessary. So I'll go ahead and invite the applicant. If you'd like to state your name, place of residence, and you'll have up to 15 minutes if you'd like.
Thank you, Grant. So my name is Ron Beisheim. I live right next door to the property. We're building a house for my daughter. And I'm also the liaison for the Kenema Neighborhood Association for Land Development. We built our house just really 5 years ago and have gone through all the codes. So I know the codes very well. I've learned a lot. I help a lot of people in the Kenema Neighborhood Association when they want to build a home here. And this preservation incentive was a surprise to me, because if you go back and look at my notes I sent to the city and the HRB back in 2018, when I came for design advice, I said, I do not believe we need a preservation incentive. The city said they did not believe I needed one. The board agreed I didn't need one. And then when I got to the final thing and found out I need one, I was surprised, because usually preservation incentives in these neighborhoods are very usually given because of the size of the lots and the footage of what need to be put on that lot. Like Kelly said, we wanted to move the house. We have a 10-foot setback in front of the house for building a home, but the Davis house sat further closer than we wanted to be. So we pushed our house back so we would be, the board and the city asked to push the house back. And that's probably why we pushed the house back. Again, Kelly was right. We're going to only have a 5-foot setback, but we squeezed another 2 foot toward the street. But we pushed the house purposely back to 20 feet in the front to line up with the Davis home, so it wouldn't be sticking out like a sore thumb. And I had no problem with that. So we tried to do everything what the city and the board wanted, and that's why we thought we had approval for it until I went to get building permits this last few weeks and said, no, we have to ask for approval again for incentive. So that's one reason why I didn't apply for it, because I didn't think I needed it. But it was a learning experience for me, I think, for the city. And I think that, like Paul said, we did make some changes to the house. So the house did drop. The garage was Grant's request when he was on the board at that time. He asked to drop the house. And so I talked to the architect. We dropped the house about 2.5 feet. It's 2.5 feet shorter than the house in front of the garage is. That's the lowest you can get a home with a garage unit to be able to open the garage doors. The top of the wall for that garage is currently at 15 feet 8 inches. The house top of the wall is at 18 foot 3 inches. So that's a difference of 2.5 feet right there. The HRB approved an ADU garage behind this home. HR, what is it? 1811. And the top of their home for their ADU is 17 foot 4 inches. So we'll be even lower than theirs by about 2 feet from the one behind it. So we believe that we should be able to get the incentive just like people behind us got it, and we're meeting all the requirements of the codes. And we're sorry we didn't catch this. We all didn't catch this back in 3 years ago when we submitted everything, the plans, because I would have asked for it then. But thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer it at this time.
Ron, did you want to make any comments about the shed as well?
Yeah, the shed was, and Paul, and I think Grant, too, was a shed that was built out of different material, had metal siding, metal roofs. It was a hazard for health. There was rats and rats nests in it. It was full of junk. There was an electrical wire run from the house next door, which didn't even own the property, and was a hot wire. Matter of fact, when I pulled it one day out of the wall, because it was sticking out, wires exposed, it sparked and arced. And that wasn't per code. It was just a nuisance to the neighborhood. And also it was had the driveway we're going to build this house was going to be right through that garage anyway. So it had to come down anyway. The reason is I don't believe anybody knew you had to have a permit to take down a dilapidated shed that was a safety and a health risk to the neighborhood. But so that's why it was taken down.
Thanks, Ron. I don't have any further questions. Any of the other board members?
I don't have any questions.
All right. In that case, we'll move on to any other public comments. All right. Hearing none, then we'll close the record for public comment on this application and move into board deliberations. I don't think I have really any comments. Pretty straightforward. Any of the other board members?
Nope.
No, I don't have any.
All right. And Paul, if you want to make your motion, maybe.
I move that we approve the setback and the demolition as per the city recommendations.
I'll second that.
Okay, board member Edgar,
Yes.
board member Ferry,
Aye.
Chair Blythe.
Aye. Okay. Motion carries. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
Okay, now we will move on to the next item and open the record for Oregon City File GLUA 2133, HR 2114, historic review for an addition to a historic landmark at 1302 17th Street, the Casper Wisemandel residence. I'll now ask each historic review board member if they have any ex parte contacts, conflicts of interest, bias, or any other statements to declare, or have visited the site, and if they visited the site, if they perceived any new information. Board member Edgar.
I have visited the site and I have no other contact.
Okay, board member Ferry.
I've had no contact and I have visited the site.
Okay, and I visited the site as well and do not have any ex parte contacts to declare. Does anyone in the audience wish to question any of the historic review board members about these disclosures? Hearing none, we'll now commence with the planning staff's report.
Thanks, Chair Blythe. So this project is for an addition to a historic landmark that's outside of the district. Apologies that the notice said that it was in the McLaughlin district. It's not in the conservation district, but it is in the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association boundary. So it's a landmark outside of the district. It's actually in the Buena Vista neighborhood, which is not a district, but it is kind of a historic, understood to be to have some historic significance. The Buena Vista Clubhouse is there, and this house is nearby. So it's a pretty simple design vernacular. The majority of historic elements are intact. The applicant's proposing to build a small addition onto the side of the house into the large side yard area. And I think generally the design is compatible. I have recommended some conditions of approval regarding materials like windows and doors, railings, texture of the siding, kind of your standard conditions that you see very often. I'm going to share some images from the staff report. So So we can look at the design. So it's in the in a single family neighborhood. Here's can everyone see these images? Okay. The home, 1.5 stories with a nice front porch, big kind of yard there, and then a large detached garage structure. And so the addition is proposed right where these two apple trees are. There's a close-up photo there. So here's your site plan, kind of flip your vision around, looking towards 17th Street. So the addition is a bathroom and a closet space. And it will have a little exterior entry on it as well, with a few stairs down to the ground. So the view from the front shows that the roof pitch is 312, which matches the dormers and the front porch on the home, the existing front porch. You can see that the siding is horizontal board to match the house, but that the reveal is wider. So the house might be 3 or 4 inches. And the proposal, I believe, is 6-inch reveal, which it actually follows the design guidelines to differentiate new from old, so that somebody kind of walking by can tell that this is different somehow and it's not part of the original structure. And so you can see there the exterior door on the side. Those 2 trees would, of course, have to be removed. And I do have a condition of approval recommending that at least 1 tree be planted in the yard in their place. The historic inventory form for the site actually has like a little hand-drawn sketch of the site, and it shows the trees. So usually when there's trees shown or mentioned on the inventory form, we assume that they might be, kind of historic landscaping and have maybe some significance. So that was the reason for that condition. So the one item I want to draw your attention to is this little window here. So the other windows that are proposed are double hung, and they're appropriately sized and placed. And the design is compatible, but I just want to flag that window. The placement of it's a little bit awkward since it's right against the wall of the home. If you look at the interior floor plan, it looks like it's actually placed right over the toilet. And then there's maybe a shower next to it. And so I don't think that given the layout of the bathroom inside, I don't think that there's really opportunity to adjust the placement of that window and move it away from the wall. And so my suggestion, or kind of my question to the board, would like some direction on whether the board thinks that window is appropriate, if you think it should be removed entirely or not, given that adjustment is probably not possible. And I will add that the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association did submit a comment. It's the only comment we received. And that comment pointed out the same window issue and called for it to be removed because it's not, the placement and the style of it being an awning window isn't compatible. And I'm happy to share that comment came in kind of late. And so I'm happy to flash that up on the screen if anyone needs to see that. I believe the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association also included in their letter that they think the proposed addition is compatible with overall design, proportion, and scale. And that the proposed door should be a simple 3 or 4 panel or 2 panel with a window, in keeping with the vernacular style. I think the door is shown as, looks like a full light door. And sorry for the scrolling. The condition about the door, the current wording is that the exterior door shall be wood or fiberglass with half light or solid design. So I think the McLaughlin Association would add to that that it be a 3 or 4 panel, like if it's solid. So they're just kind of adding more to that if the board wants to consider that. I believe it would be appropriate to add that to the condition if the board so chooses. And I think that's all I have. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I will, when I looked at the side door, when I'm on whatever, 17th, whatever it is, that comes in off of the back, it appeared to be a metal door. But I didn't go up to take a look at it. But I would like to see, I think that the suggestions put by the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association for the style of the door are appropriate. I think also the suggestion to eliminate that window, the little window altogether. If there's plenty of light coming in from the other windows, I just think the simplest thing is to eliminate it if there's no justification or other problems associated with eliminating it. The only thing that I would love to see is just a little narrower type of siding. Yeah, I understand the importance of trying to have something that differentiates between the original building and the older building, but somewhere along the line, the compatibility of design of windows or the design of that goes from the original windows to the new windows, whenever they can be close together, close in design and appearance, I think it looks better. And therefore, to me, if they had it closer to the same width of the siding, I think it would make it look better. Overall, I like the design. I don't see anything really of any major problem. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Kelly, do we have any photo, or do we know what the style of the front door is and if it's original, or I don't know if we had any images of that. I don't remember.
The existing front door?
Yeah.
I don't think so. It's not visible in any of these photos.
Okay. Maybe we can ask the applicant, I guess.
And the siding, the drawing shows the siding as the existing siding is really narrow, but in this photo, I don't think that's any less than 4 inches.
Yeah.
So, I would, given that we don't know the exact measurement of this siding, the new siding's proposed to have a 6-inch reveal. The board could maybe just make a condition for some sort of maximum discrepancy or difference in the siding reveal, if you want to.
I would like that.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. Any other questions for staff before public testimony?
I just had a question. What the window that's controversial in the water closet, what type of window is that? Is that a fixed pane or is it an awning window or casement?
It's an awning window.
Awning window. Is that what the little triangle is?
Yep.
All right.
Mm-hmm. And the guidelines, well, actually, I take that back. I was about to refer to the new construction design guidelines, but this does not follow those, so sorry.
I'm sorry. And in the guidelines, it doesn't say that you're not allowed to use awning windows, right?
No, no. The new construction guidelines mention awning windows that are allowed only with HRB approval. But the guidelines for alterations don't have anything specific about awning or casement or anything like that. It's just, it's a little more open-ended.
Thank you.
Okay, in that case, we'll invite the applicant to make their statement. You'll have up to 15 minutes, but you don't need to use all that time. If you could state your name and place of residence, please.
I will say, I'm not sure who everyone is on the list here, but the applicant did say that they were on vacation and would try their best to be able to connect in. And so it could be that they are not able to from wherever they are. I will add that I did not get any indication from them that they had any concerns or questions about the staff recommendation.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. Hearing nothing, we'll assume there are not any of the parties on the call, and we'll move forward to any other public comments on this application. Okay, hearing nothing, I guess we'll assume that we don't have any additional public comments. In that case, we will close the record for public testimony and move on to board deliberations.
Well, I would love to see the little window removed if that would be my number one choice. But I would like to hear what others might comment on that window. And then the door, I like the idea that the door would have a more of a historic design profile to it. And I would, the choices of what this could be, either for a panel and with a light in it or not. But I would like it to be more historic, have some type of historic profile to it. And then in the siding, I would like to see the siding to be closer to the height or width of the existing siding, not to exceed maybe an inch or an inch and a half in difference between what the existing siding is and the new siding on the add-on addition.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think that all sounds fairly reasonable.
I'm just wondering, is it possible that there might be another type of window that they could put in that place? Because in the bathroom, it looks like the toilet is separated from the rest of the bathroom, so there would be no natural light within the toilet enclosure. Is it the fact that it's pressed up against the side of the house, or is it the style of the window? Is there another window that might be more acceptable, or is just no window? Would we want to leave something open where they could propose a different window, or suggest a window that might be acceptable?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little torn. I tend to agree that it's not the most appropriate, spot for a window placement or style, but it's not, in my opinion, it's not egregious either. So I was kind of hoping the applicant would be here to comment on how badly they want their window and sort of, to help guide us.
If there was a little, seen these little 3-pane, like upper windows really high, close to the ceiling up there. But I believe that they may have been looking for this window for more than just light. It may be they want it to be part of the inability to air out the area.
Yeah, it's hard without the applicant here, isn't it, to
Yeah.
understand what's going on. But if it's simpler. To just suggest removal.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could approve with the condition that it be removed, but leave it open that they could come back and request, that would allow them to kind of move forward with the project as a whole. But if they want us to reconsider the window, to potentially come back to the board for that item.
I would agree with that. I like that. Great.
Okay, so then on the door issue, is the staff's condition of approval as written acceptable, or did you want to make it more specific than that? So right now it's the condition of approval is wood or fiberglass with half-light or solid design. I don't necessarily have a problem with the way the comment from the neighborhood association was written, but without knowing the style of the front door, I'm hesitant to be too specific about what we specify.
I like the wording, if somebody can make it better, please do, but that's associated with McLaughlin Neighborhood Association. And the proposed door should be simple, 3 or 4 panel or 2 panel with a window in keeping with the vernacular style.
I'm okay with that wording. If we would like to insert that in the conditions of approval. Kelly, is your hand up, or is that?
Yeah, I was gonna just make a suggestion about the window issue if you wanted to give some additional flexibility, so that they maybe wouldn't have to come back. I think that the fact that the window is right against the wall of the house is one of the issues, and so you could require a certain number of inches separation, and so then the window would have to get a little bit smaller. And then if you didn't like the awning window, it could be a casement or a fixed. And so if you wanted to give that option to the applicant, if they really, really want a window there. But I think the suggestion by Chair Blythe would also work really well.
I'm supporting Chair Blythe's suggestion.
I'll go along with that.
Okay, I mean, I'm fine with that. Don't have my heart set on it either. If there was a type of window that we thought was better, I'd be fine leaving it open to their, discussion, but
Yes.
I don't know if offsetting it from the side is, given that interior layout is much of an option or not. And I don't know if it, if it would be better if it was a fixed or double hung or casement window potentially, if that would improve
Improve the aesthetics.
yeah.
Yeah. It almost looks like it's right about the size of one of the lights of the double hung window, just from the schematics.
Yes.
It's a little bit longer. So I guess if it got a little bit shorter. I don't know. The window, it doesn't really bother me all that much, but I do understand why the neighborhood association has suggested removal.
Without them having the ability to comment on, or giving us other ideas that might be acceptable to them. This puts the ball back into their court if it's really something that they really think they need.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on board with that then. Okay, so we talked about the door, the window, then on the siding issue. Paul, do you have a suggested condition of approval? Do you want to make it just?
I would like to see the siding width to be within 1 inch of the existing siding, or as within, kind of equaling it or something. But historically, if we put down a vertical membrane or divider between the old house and the new house, and you color it, that kind of serves enough definition for between new and old. And we should try to keep it simple, but the key is to try to make it look right. And that's the reason, part of the reason why the window it just didn't look right. And I think that if we could make it look right, it will enhance their value, and I think it'll enhance the value of the historic house itself.
Okay, so do you just want to add the condition that the exposure on the siding be approximately 1 inch greater than the exposure on the existing siding then? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so then the three conditions will be that that the door be wood or fiberglass. My computer's froze. And of a simple 3 or 4 panel or 2 panel with window in keeping with the vernacular style. That the window be removed unless they'd like to come back and make their case on that specifically, and then that the siding exposure be approximately 1 inch greater than the existing.
Or less, 1 inch or less.
Okay. Right. Any other topics for discussion before motion?
I move for approval of this with those conditions of approval.
I'll second that.
Just clarifying, you're adding those 3 to the,
Yes.
The existing.
right, okay,
The door would be a modification of condition 3,
right,
and then the other 2 are new. Yeah.
great. Okay, Board Member Edgar,
Yes.
Board Member Ferry,
Aye.
and Chair Blythe.
Hi. All right, very good. Motion carries. We'll now move on to the next item and open the record for Oregon City file number GLUA 2134, HR 2113, historic review for the realignment of the Barlow Trail visual corridor. I'll now ask each historic review board member if they have any ex parte contacts, conflicts of interest, bias, or any other statement to declare, and if they visited the site. And if they visited the site, if they have perceived any new information. Board member Edgar.
I have not recently visited the site, but I have visited the site many times as a customer of the business, Surrey's farm. I don't believe I have any conflict of interest. I don't know any of the people per se. I have been doing research and trying to better understand the Barlow Trail. And that's been all that I can turn around and say is I'm trying to be very pragmatic.
Okay, thank you. Board member Ferry.
I don't have any conflict of interest, and I have not visited the site, although I have been to the Sirius farm.
All right, thank you. And then I also do not have anything to declare, and I've also not really visited the site specifically, but sort of have in the general area and reviewed the location. Does anyone in the audience wish to question any of the historic review board members about these disclosures? Okay, hearing none, we'll move forward with the staff report.
Thanks, Chair Blythe. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, so this is HR 2113. This review is for realignment of the Barlow Trail visual corridor. This is in the Park Place neighborhood up off Holcomb Boulevard. So it's large site, undeveloped, farm use. This has been, I think this has been in the city for 15 years now. It was annexed, I think it was 2006, it might've been later. It's next to Holcomb School property, and it is in the R10 zoning district. The Barlow Trail is a corridor that follows the historic Barlow Road route of the Oregon Trail. The code requires a 30-foot wide visual corridor be maintained along the trail alignment. There is no physical trail requirement for people to be able to walk the trail. It's just a visual corridor, so no structures can be built within that 30 feet. And that's so that's how it's been maintained or regulated since I think the 90s. Before that, there was no sort of regulation, so you might see some older subdivisions that didn't allow for any sort of visual corridor in the development of those subdivisions. The source of the mapping and the data on the Barlow Trail is from many studies before 1992, but the most recent is a 1992 study by Clackamas County. So the trail runs from somewhere near Mount Hood all the way to Oregon City, where people arrived in the Willamette Valley from the Oregon Trail. And the study, there's some excerpts of the study in your agenda packet. The city does have the full study available. It's quite lengthy, but I'm happy to provide more information if the board feels that you need more. I can give you tons of stuff to read, but I kind of took out what I thought was most relevant. So you probably saw various maps within your packet. There is and there's this big pink asterisk on the maps too. So the trail corridor is shown here on the map on the far right. This is the county tax maps, and this is really the regulatory source. So all the other maps that you see, I think, are various iterations and versions of it, but really what's been adopted officially is this route shown on the tax maps, which is depicted with brown wagon wheels. And that's supposed to represent the corridor. Now, the county's code requires a 40-foot corridor in some places and a 20-foot corridor in other places. But the city's code requires a 30-foot wide corridor. And so here are the tax maps of the property in question, and then the neighboring properties as well. So the one here in the middle is Winston Drive subdivision. This was developed before there was any Barlow Trail requirements. And so the trail goes right through the middle of this lot number 1 here. And there's some structures in the way. So the corridor is interrupted right here. And then from there, there are some newer subdivisions. This is Barlow Crest. And then there's Abernathy Landing, which was recently developed. And so in this location in the Barlow Crest, you can see these lots are really long. And so there's an easement on the back edge of those lots. So those owners can't build in that area, as well as this lot number 27. And then the Barlow Trail follows the alignment of Barlow Drive, and that continues into the Abernathy Landing subdivision. So the reason that the board didn't review anything related to Abernathy Landing is that the trail was fully accommodated within the public right-of-way, meaning no structures would be built there anyway, and therefore the visual corridor would be maintained. So there was no reason to review anything for that. In this case, the applicant wishes to adjust the alignment slightly within their development plan. So the applicable standards when dealing with Barlow Trail in chapter 1740, code says that the 30-foot wide open visual corridor shall be maintained and shall follow the actual route of the Oregon Trail if known. If the actual route is unknown, the open visual corridor shall connect with the open visual corridor on adjacent property. And so what we have on adjacent property is, we have the easement, and then we have the gap where the county subdivision is right here. And then on the Holcomb School property, there is no easement, and the school building is placed kind of right here in the middle of that alignment. The other part of the code, this code section says that no new buildings or sign construction shall be permitted. Landscaping, parking, streets, and driveways are permitted. So today's request is for an adjustment of the visual corridor alignment as part of a residential development. It's a 123 unit development in the R10 zone. And this is being reviewed as a planned unit development, meaning it gets reviewed by the Planning Commission. So all the other standards that apply to the subdivision are going to be reviewed by the Planning Commission. And the Historic Review Board is only really looking at the adjustment of the Barlow Trail. Here's a map showing the existing easement that we have, bright yellow. And then you can see that alignment of Barlow Drive. You can see the corridor kind of go through that house and then into the Sears Farm property. I will say this, this orange line here is 100 feet wide. So it's a lot wider than what the 30-foot wide corridor would be. Just understand that looks a lot different. So the applicant has provided 2 options, and I think it'll be interesting to hear if the applicant would like the board to consider still both options or only the latest one, which is option 2. But option 1 has the corridor coming in between lots 45 and 46. And the corridor comes in through this tax lot down here by lot 40, around lot 43. And so the separation of the proposed easement versus the corridor is about 200 feet. And the applicant would continue this visual corridor through some streets, through some other properties, and then into some open space that's proposed as part of the subdivision, and then on into the Holcomb School property. The option 2, and now you can see where the this is overlaid with the tax map. So this alignment is a little closer to the actual mapped route. So I know it's hard to see, but the easement has moved down a couple of lots. It looks like between lot 44 and 45, but there's some renumbering of the lots. So it's actually kind of like 2 lots south of where it was before. So it's really closely aligned with the wagon wheels. So it comes at a sharper angle through the subdivision and then into the open space. I think the only adjustment in this case would be at the upper end here where the mapped corridor goes through lot 12 and part of lot 13. But this easement would, I think, be a little bit south of that. So in the past, when a similar request was made for a subdivision, the board did grant the applicant the ability to adjust the Barlow Trail alignment slightly in order to accommodate buildable lots. And that was a smaller subdivision, maybe just 8 or 10 lots in that subdivision or less. And so it was kind of a constrained site. And what the board decided then was to allow the easement to be adjusted up to 15 feet on either side. So you can adjust it, but don't go outside of your, don't let your center line of your trail go outside of the mapped boundary. So up to 15 feet adjustment. That application was back in 2013. And there was no mitigation or anything like that proposed by the applicant. The board just said, here are your sideboards, you can adjust 15 feet, and that's fine. In this case, the applicant is proposing to address that asterisk that you saw on the map. That was an indication for a potential interpretive area. My guess is that actually was trying to pertain to the school property because it's publicly owned. One of the maps said it labeled that asterisk as an opportunity for interpretive signage or some sort of interpretation because it's publicly owned. And I don't think this farm site has ever been publicly owned. However, the applicant has proposed to include interpretive signage within their development in the open space here, tract B. So the applicant would work with us to get some signage in there, would include this nice open space connected to the school property, and then also is planning to actually build a physical path in the corridor rather than just having a visual corridor. So the board, might consider those elements of the project to be mitigation. And so the board, I think that the staff recommendation that's in your packet now is to stick with the precedent that's been set by the board for allowing up to 15 feet of adjustment. But I also think if the board wanted to go the direction of allowing a larger adjustment, that the mitigation that is proposed in the form of the interpretive signage and the open space and the pathway could be, could be relevant, and the board might consider that. I think either way, we can write findings that can be supported. Let's see. So the recommended conditions are a plat restriction on the plat, that the applicant shall coordinate with planning department and parks department for the interpretive signage design. The HRB would not require future review of the signage, but may provide informal review and assistance with the signage content. I think there are other great sources as well that we would try to use, like the Clackamas County Historical Society. I don't think that necessarily needs to be in this language, but I would try to connect the applicants to them. And 3, that the applicant shall limit the realignment of Barlow Trail corridor to maintain the center line of the easement within the established 30-foot corridor. So that what that means is the 15-foot maximum adjustment. That's all I have. Any questions from the board?
I don't have any questions.
Does the first option would not comply with the third condition of approval? Is that, but the second one would, is that?
I think the second one, the far western side of the site near the open space might not exactly be 15. I think that might be a little more than 15 feet. And so that option kind of came in after I wrote these conditions. And I think that that second alignment, given that there's the open space and the interpretive signage, I would probably recommend that whatever the adjustment is in that location is probably appropriate, or the board could find that it's appropriate, even if it's not, even if it's more than 15 feet. But I don't know exactly how many feet that is as an adjustment.
Where does the property, where does the Barlow Trail align with the other development, the county development? I'm looking down here at the map. I'm trying to make sure that the way the proposed route or direction of the trail aligns with the what exists in the previous developments, and what is it, trails view, or the.
Yeah, so the county subdivision is this one, Winston Drive, and then these.
Yeah, the Winston
lots.
Drive, yes.
Yeah, so the city holds an easement over this subdivision. It ends right there. And then we do not have an easement through this subdivision. And frankly, it's unlikely that we would ever get one, just unless, there was some redevelopment that happened, or, additional, it would have to annex into the city. They would have to annex into the city and then further divide the property. And then we'd have a chance of getting an easement. Now,
are there buildings in that county development right now over where the trail is alleged to be?
Yes, so that it's hard to see, but there's an accessory structure here and here. And so I think this lot right here, it does have view obstructions within the alignment. And the option 1, I think, had the trail, or had the easement up, let's see, 1, 2, about 3 lots. So right here, it would come across like that. That was option 1, starting way up here. And then option 2 was really just right in line with this big orange swath. And then just a little bit south of it as you go to the west.
Okay.
So option 2 better aligns with existing understandings over option one.
Correct.
The ability to have it denoted or where roads and people, so that if somebody's going along the street and they see this open space, visual open space, it would be nice that we have some type of explanation or signage that explains what it is. And the fact that the developer has opted to be able to put some type of trail through, connecting all the way through, I think is excellent. But I would like to minimize all movement or adjustments, and I think that to try to make sure that it keeps in alignment with what has already been understood as existing, but where it connects into the school property, the school is there, and I think that somewhere along the line it would be nice if they acknowledge that the fact that they got a building right across the trail. But that's another horse, another thing down the line, not to be involved here. I'm just would like to minimize any adjustments and stay as close as we can to what has been historically identified as the route of the trail.
Thanks, Paul. Any other questions for staff before we move on to the applicant? All right, we'll go ahead and invite the applicant to make their statement. You'll have up to 15 minutes. If you could state your name and place of residence, please.
Can you hear me? Okay. Good evening. My name is Rick Givens. I'm a planning consultant on the project.
There's a considerable amount of interpretation as to what the actual alignment of the Barlow Road is through the subject property. Kelly stated that the official document is the assessor's map, but I'm not really sure that's correct. Perhaps you can point to something that adopts it. As far as I'm aware, the only reference in the code is in 17.40, let me get the right citation here. 17.40.030 C3, which says the Oregon Trail Barlow Historic Corridor properties identified in the 1993, and that's incorrect, through 1992, Barlow Road Historic Corridor Inventory of the Barlow Road by Clackamas County. And that's kind of important. The official map that is in that document, and I'm trying to get to excuse me 1 second here, is an appendix page 1. And I don't know, can I share my screen? Is that possible? Or do you not allow that?
If you have something to share, go ahead, but make sure that staff has copies as well.
They're all in the record, so nothing new. Okay, share screen. Share. And are you seeing my screen at this point?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. This is the document, appendix page 1 from the county's 1992 study. I then found this document, which is just a colorized version of that, and it was a better resolution, so I used it in my mapping. But when you look at that, how it fits on the site, it comes in lower than the assessor's map version. If I go to my CAD file here, if I zoom in, you can see they're both on here. The wagon wheel alignment goes further north, and we've tried to match up as close as we can to the wagon wheel alignment down here because we were told that was the official document. Later, we found that this really is the only adopted document. The county assessor's map is not an adopted land use document to my knowledge. And you'll see that as it exits the site, it is approximately the alignment that we've got through our proposed open space. So, and I would also note, if you go back to the 1992 study, and what it says is the site terminates near Hilltop Road. This is referring to the previous section, crossing Hilltop Road and traversing agricultural areas, developments, and a housing project without visible traces still apparent. An isolated narrow swale is evident just west of Holcomb Elementary School and a horse pasture. The Barlow route apparently converges with the current Holcomb Road alignment just west of Swan Avenue intersection. So this whole section from Hilltop Road on over to somewhere about in here where Pasture Way is, there's no visible remnants of the Barlow Road, but they made their best guess as to where it went. And this is the adopted document. It's a land use document as part of the county's comprehensive plan, and it's referred to in the city's ordinance. So I think it's actually the only land use document that we've got to work with. As a practical matter, we would like to try to make this work as best we can. So we did swing the alignment down to fit where the wagon wheels were. We got it at that location, but holding it to 15 feet up here just accomplishes taking it off of the mapped route of the adopted corridor. There's a letter that's now in the record tonight from Dan Sears, who's the owner of the property. And he said he's been all over the property. There are no visible signs of wagon ruts or other things. They've run cattle on the property since the early 50s, and then it was allowed to grow into timber, which was subsequently harvested with heavy machinery being used. So there's really nothing there that identifies the wagon wheel design as being of significance. When you go to the west on the school site, again, there is nothing there. It's all been graded and there's a lawn. So there's nothing sacred, and I believe this is actually somewhat incorrect. County cartography did their best take. It's derivative from the 1992 study. We should go back to the 1992 study as being the most definitive. And for that reason, we would ask that you simply accept the revised plan where we went back and tried to get as close as possible on the southeast corner. If you absolutely have to stick with the wagon wheels or as close to it, really, we can probably move lot 12 further south and shift our open space up, but I don't think it accomplishes anything other than making it less correct from a historic standpoint based on the best known data. Beyond that, we understand this importance of the Barlow Road corridor in terms of Oregon City's and the state of Oregon's history, and we're fully willing to commit to doing everything required by code. We're just dealing with a little bit of dealing by braille here and not knowing exactly where the road is or should be. We suggest that the best data is the county study. It was done by a study commissioned by historians who researched everything. County cartography, I think, got off a little bit, but as a practical matter, we do plan to put in an informational kiosk in the open space of the project. We're more than happy to work with the Historic Review Board to discuss what kinds of information and signage should be displayed there. We want to make this a part of the project and look forward to working with you to make it something that is, something that the community can be proud of. Not trying to dodge anything, but really want to try to get it where we think is best fitting with both the existing alignment further to the east and with the historic alignment as mapped by the county study. Be glad to answer any questions you may have regarding that. I'll stop sharing here unless you have questions on the maps.
Yeah, and in addition to the kiosk in the open space area, Rick, we used several of the street names were associated with the history of the Barlow Trail, correct?
Yes, for the record, it is Harlan Barrow with Hycon Construction Development, the project developer. Yeah, the names of the streets are proposed to be consistent with historic names of the area. And we're again going to make use of signage and make it fit as best we can. As you can see, it kind of slices through our development at a less than advantageous angle, but we've done a pretty good job of trying to make it fit. Be glad to answer any other questions you may have.
All right, thank you. Could you speak to, it looks like there was the first alternative that in the original application you sent, Kelly, and then there was a updated option 2. Is one of those the more preferred, or is the second the more recent, or?
The first option was something I discussed with Kelly early on. I noted the fact that it looked like the corridor ended up in the backyards of a couple of houses, and maybe it made sense to try to hit a lot line so that in the future, if that area gets annexed, if somebody wants to partition, they could do a view corridor to tie into it. And that's what the first alignment illustrated. Subsequently, she, I think, got into it deeper, and we talked a lot about the mapping, and so it became apparent that we should try to reconfigure to match that more closely. And that's what we did. I think at this point, we would stick with the second plan. I think it's the best alignment feasible through this project to make a reasonable match to the historic record as to where the Barlow Road went through the site. I would say, I'd rather, if we're getting into 15 feet from, from what is a difficult issue, I think it would be preferable, since I'm trying to merge between 2 different databases, one the county assessors map that seems to make the most sense on the east, and the historic Barlow Road inventory map that was adopted by the county and is referenced by the city on the west, where it goes into the school site. I think just acknowledging that we've done that and accepting this alignment would be the best approach, rather than making it some subjective thing in the future.
Okay. Any other questions from other board members? Okay, in that case, we'll move on to any other public comments that we have on this topic.
Yes,
If you could state your name and place of residence, and you'll have up to 3 minutes if you're an individual.
my name is Bob LaSalle, and I live in Oregon City in the Park Place neighborhood. I think you have my letter on record that I hope you've all read, but of June 12th of this year, I'd like to offer some additional information. And once again, I'd like to state my sorrow that the pioneers didn't consider Icon construction plans when they used that route. Too bad. But on the land use application form of November 30th, 2016, the applicant states on page 7, quote, "The site is well suited from a physical standpoint to be developed, as it is free of any significant development constraints." Unquote. Since the applicant was aware of the Barlow Road corridor, they acknowledged that the corridor posed no constraints. On page 10, the applicant states, quote, "The only specially designated open space historic, or natural resources applicable to the subject area is the alignment of the Oregon Trail Barlow Road Historic Corridor across a portion of the property, unquote. Now, Michael Robinson, the applicant's attorney, land use attorney, in his letter of March 13th, 2017 states on page 8, quote, "The applicant acknowledges that a portion of the Barlow Trail is located on the property and will be addressed in the land use division application," unquote. Now, in the annexation narrative, which wasn't dated, but page 8, the applicant states, quote, "The only specially designated open space, scenic, or natural resource applicable to the subject area is the alignment of the Oregon Trail Barlow Road Historic Corridor across a portion of the property." And attached to that was an aerial photo which shows the Barlow Road superimposed on the photo. Now, in the request for zone change of February 3rd, 2021, the applicant states, quote, "The Barlow Trail connector passes through the site," unquote. And since the applicant has acknowledged on several different occasions the existence of the Barlow Road corridor and actually put the route on his own superimposed aerial photo, they knew exactly where that corridor was and stated that it posed no constraints. And it seems reasonable that the developer adapt to the Pioneer route rather than the route be changed. And the reason for the change is simply to allow more lots to be developed more conveniently. And in fact, this doesn't apply to the HRB, but in their application, they have in fact, in all practical purposes, changed the zoning from R10 to R8 without actually going for a zone change, but that's something completely different. But since this proves that the applicant truly knew where the Barlow Road Oregon Trail existed across that property since 2016, there would be no reason for them to request this change except for their convenience. Let's see. Anyway, I request that their request to adjust the corridor be denied. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Gene. Any other public comments?
Yeah, hi, my name is Tori Lamb. I live in the Barlow neighborhood. My home actually borders the Barlow Trail. When this development was originally developed, a lot of the people that moved in here, they were told that they couldn't build on this supposed trail, and no one really knew about it in the neighborhood. And so there was never ever any enforcement of this trail, other than this little crappy sign that's out there. It's actually just kind of sticking in my neighbor's garden right now. So I would just submit to the board that if your intention is to honor this historically this trail, it needs to be in some type of deliberate designation, so that in the future, 100, 200 years from now, people will see it that there was intent to preserve this. And just putting up little designated signs in practice is just you're just wasting time if that's what your intention is. So I'm just giving testimony from just being here. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, not hearing any others. The applicant will have up to 5 additional minutes if you'd like to respond to any of those public comments. You don't have to if you don't want to, but if you want to.
Well, I think we've done as good a job as we can to match the alignment and the area in the park that we're going to have the kiosk and everything about the history of the Barlow Trail. I think is something that would be more than a little sign. I mean, that's not what we were thinking about. So I think we're trying to meet the spirit of the requirements.
Okay, thank you. So for the board, I guess at this point we have a couple of options. We could either close the record for public comment and move into deliberations and make a decision, or we can potentially continue this application and take additional public comment, or do additional research if we feel like it's needed to come to a decision here. Paul?
I'm inclined to
Excuse me.
I'm inclined to ask for a continuance because I would really like to have a better understanding of this trail alignment to make sure that I can see what was shown reflected on the on some of the county tax assessor maps where with the wagon wheels and I listened to what Bob LaSalle had to say about where it was initially reflected by this development community as to where it existed, where at that time. I just like to see how all of this stuff syncs together, where we get as close as we can to an acknowledged assessment as to where the trail cuts through there. And I would hope that neighbor would like to see something like that more responsibly identified, so that where it cuts through his neighborhood, that maybe this trail would exist. There would be actually a legitimate trail that would cut through that area and connect all the way through right up to the school grounds. I like what I hear from ICON with them setting aside space and an open space to identify more of this history. But I just like to see the trail. I just have some confused. I'm confused a little bit about where the trail actually is, and wherever it is, I just like to have us be as close as we can. And to me, where it connects on to the neighboring property, that's significant, because that's where we should be trying to create that link through there that ties all of this together right up into the school ground. And so I'm hoping that we're kind of meshing this all together so that everything links together, and there's an agreement as to how best we can do this and how best it aligns with what we know best as to where it cuts through there. And right now it seems like it's a little fuzzy, and that's my concern, and my hope is that we could eliminate the fuzziness of it and then move ahead.
Chairman, excuse me, I have my hand up. I believe I should be allowed some rebuttal time. I'm sorry, my whole feed went dead there from a moment there.
Yeah, I think you did freeze up a minute, so I think we can allow you to go back, and so you'd have up to, say, 5 minutes for rebuttal.
I don't think it'll take that long. I just wanted to say, first of all, that Mr. LaSalle is right. We've always known the Barlow corridor was a factor in the design of this project. We never have tried to dodge the responsibility of carrying that forward through the site plan. The biggest problem has been, I think, varying information on where it should go, which map was appropriate, which controlled. And so it really was only yesterday that Kelly and I finally got with Ben Blessing, the county planner, and we're really able to obtain a copy of the 1992 study and this new alignment, or actually the adopted alignment, came to light. So it's a matter of trying to find what best fits, I think, because the actual fact is nobody knows the exact alignment, or even if there was a single exact alignment. At this point, wagons probably branched out and went across the property wherever they wanted to. I don't think there was a specific road at this point, according to Mr. Sears. That's his best theory, because there is no worn wagons ruts across the property. So it's more important, I think, that we tie into the property and the plan for the development on the east. On the north side, we've tried to hit the study as closely as possible. I think we've got it nailed. And that ties into the schoolyard, which is a big, wide open expanse of playground and other open space associated with the school. So it ties in well on that end. The fact is, Mr. Lamb noted that he has concerns about the value of this because quite often it's just an easement going across properties. On most of ours, we've either got it in planned open space that will be preserved as open space in perpetuity, or it's a pedestrian pathway where there'll actually a pathway along the alignment that'll be, again, platted and maintained. It's only a very short stretch on the east end where we're doing the view corridor that's specified by code as an option, because there's really nowhere to tie to on that end. But we are putting it as close as we can to the wagon wheels, which is what was relied upon in the design of those developments further to the east. I don't think there's anything to be gained by extending the time period. Frankly, we're more than happy to give you time to look at it, but the reality is simply that we have some earlier maps, with the one with the asterisk that you've all seen, the one on the county tax assessor's map, and the study. The only one that bears, to my knowledge, bears any weight at all as a land use matter is the adopted study. It's referenced, it's adopted by Clackamas County, and it's also adopted by reference in the city's code. That's what we've designed to. So we would ask that you approve the application with the design as proposed in option 2. I think it's the best fit we're going to get on this property.
All right, thank you, Rick. Kelly, could you bring up option 2 again?
And I will add that the indication we got from the county is that the tax maps, this wagon wheel tax map reflects the adopted alignment. But I think what Rick showed is that, when you draw a line and a marker on a map, there's a little bit of fuzziness. And the county acknowledged that there's going to be slight, inaccuracies, deviations, given all of the uncertainty. And the map the actual map attachment within the reference document, I can pull that up so you can see exactly which one it is, instead of looking at the tax map. Would you like me to do that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Here we go. Okay, so this I believe is the attached map in in the study. It has the asterisks, and it does, this is discussed in the written staff report, but I didn't mention it earlier. There are 3 tiers, or I guess 4 tiers of like how certain and how intact the trail is. So there are some high priority and pristine road segments where there's actual tracks or some physical evidence of the Barlow Road. Then there's second priority where there might have more, like just less physical evidence or maybe some written diaries, which is some of the data sources. And then third priority, whereas there's no evidence remaining. And that's the purple color here. And so you can see that starting around Hilltop Road, I believe it is, all of it is purple, coming into Oregon City on the Holcomb segment. And then, I think this line is the clearest we can get, and I'll try to zoom in. But it does come through in like kind of right at the bottom edge of that second smaller lot on Winston Drive. And then it goes up above the property line boundary here. So if you take that and then compare it to the option 2, and I can try it. Let me pull up option 2 on its own. So maybe it'll look clearer. Okay. So there's the south end, right at the edge of these 2 properties, this 2 first smaller lots in that subdivision. And then it does go up above this lot, this property boundary right here. So I think that this line, that the wagon wheels are almost exactly what's shown on that adopted map. I mean,
Kelly, where is that map from? Because it's not the county's adopted 1992 map.
it's the color version of it. It
It's
matches
not.
exactly the one that I have that came with the.
It's not in what Ben sent us yesterday.
Thanks, Kelly. I guess my feeling is that I think we're unlikely to get a 100% concrete answer on that. I don't know that there is a exact alignment. Board member Ferry, did you have an opinion on whether we have enough information to make a decision?
I do. I don't think that we're gonna get any more information if we have a continuance. I think that the maps vary slightly, and if there's no physical evidence, then we can just sort of go off of what we believe.
Yeah, I guess I tend to think the eastern alignment is important in the sense, it would be great to maybe someday in the long future be able to actually connect all these corridors. So keeping the eastern alignment, aligned such that it could connect through to the portions that are there are important. The western to me is less important exactly how it lines up, since the Holcomb school property is all open there, and
Yes.
at some point that's redeveloped wherever it lands, would likely be prioritized. So I tend to think that, I guess my personal opinion is that option 2 seems reasonable, and potentially, you could move lot 12 to the south and then have it a little higher, but I'm not sure that it really, in the end, would be any more accurate than what's there. So. Paul?
I'll buy into that. It's just, I wish that there was something that was more definitive, but I guess there isn't. So if somebody was give me some ability to think that there was something better, that more accurate information we could find that would tell us how it moved across this parcel. I just believe that if we can keep the alignment, that eastern alignment connection, as close as we can to what has previously been done, and then having that big track up next to the school, I think gives us an ability to really hopefully make some sense out of what has been done and why it's been done and why it's important, with the signage and verbiage that's created, that talks about the importance of the Barlow Trail.
Okay. So are we in agreement then to close the record for public testimony?
Yes.
All right. Then we will go ahead and close the record for the public record. So moving into board deliberations. Are there any comments on the staff's recommended conditions of approval as written? I think condition 3 might need to be modified just very slightly to approve option 2.
Is it possible to pull them up, Kelly, so we can see them?
Thank you.
There's something in the way that give subtitles a try. Can't read it.
Oh gosh, is that what you guys are seeing?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Oh, sorry.
What do you propose the recommended condition number 3 be altered to say, Grant?
I guess just that the realignment shall be, I guess, I guess should match option 2, or I don't, or if we can, or we could leave that condition on the east side, but then allow the flexibility on the west side.
Okay,
So within the first 200 feet from the eastern property boundary, condition 3 applies. And after that, the option 2 alignment is acceptable. Or you could just say option 2 is approved.
I think maybe just option 2 is approved. Is that a better way to go about it?
Yeah, I think that's simpler, likely. So.
yes.
I see a hand raised. I'm not sure if that's left over or new.
Rick, that looks like you, if it's a procedural question, can answer it, but we close the record for any comment on the application, so.
Just a leftover. I'm not trying to comment.
All right, thank you. Okay, then I think we're ready for a motion then.
Well, I'll recommend approval of the recommended conditions for the alignment of the Barlow Trail through this proposed subdivision based upon option number 2.
I'll second that.
Just to clarify, you're replacing condition 3 with a reference to the option 2 provided by the applicant?
That option 2 on the eastern side must align with the existing easements and understandings in the previous development on the east side.
So is it okay if I change the condition 3 to just reference the option that you all were looking at that aligns with on the east side?
I think option 2 meets condition 3 on the east side is my interpretation of it. So I think, is that Paul? Paul, is that your?
Yes, that's my understanding too.
Okay. Should I call the vote?
Yes, please.
Okay. Board Member Edgar,
Yes, approve.
Board Member Ferry,
Aye.
and Chair Blythe.
Aye. Okay. Motion carries and the application is approved. On that note, that will conclude the public hearing portion of the meeting tonight, and we'll move into other business. So we have the minutes for October 27th, 2020, December 10th, 2020 to approve. Do any of the board members have any comments or modifications or additions for any of those minutes?
I do not.
No, and neither do I. So I'll go ahead and move to approve both sets of minutes.
Move for approval.
Yes.
Okay, Board Member Edgar,
Yes.
Board Member Ferry,
Aye.
Chair Blythe.
Aye. All right, minutes are approved, and then we'll move into communications.
I can update you on compatible change projects since we, last meeting, you decided to have another work session. The city commission's agendas and schedule is overloaded. And so they've been kind of pushing this out farther. I think it's in the fall now where they would have time to consider it at a work session. So given the 3 agenda items tonight, I didn't include a compatible change discussion on this agenda, but we can plan on the July meeting holding that discussion to continue the work that you have been doing on that. And I anticipate maybe 1 or 2 public hearings in July. I think that's, we did also discuss how to let new owners know that they are in a historic home and that there are regulations they need to follow. And we talked about the welcome packets. The Kenema Neighborhood Association reached out to me recently to ask for copies of those so that they can distribute them when they have a new neighbor come purchase a property. And so those are now available to the neighborhood association. So that's great news. And we're continuing with the mailings whenever we get new taxpayer information from the county for any of those properties. So that's ongoing. So people will be getting them in the mail and then maybe even getting them from their neighborhood association as well. And I think that's all I have.
All right, great. Thanks, Kelly. Anybody else have anything else to communicate?
I would still like to sometime have a discussion about just about windows and window designs, so that we could we would be thinking proactively about what we need to do. One of the things I would love to see happen is invite window companies that would be help us with what they could help prepare and have, and that we could look at it and try to see if there are things we could accept that are good and do advance the criteria that we should hopefully have, that it identify what a historically appropriate window looks like of a new material or replacement one.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I don't know exactly where to even start with that, but I don't know if you have thoughts, but if I don't know, you have something in mind.
I would like to almost get some competitive open market type help from different window manufacturers where they could be invited in and to say, okay, we're looking to come up with some designs and where you understand what we want and need, and we take a look at what you could bring to the table, and we come to some agreements, and that, yeah, this is an acceptable parameters and design, and so that we just don't end up with some things happening that are vague and don't sink in with what we're hoping to achieve.
Okay, so you're thinking maybe to expand the list of pre-approved, window models or lines that would meet our policy. I think, we usually say Marvin integrity or equivalent, but
yeah,
create a full list of.
Yeah, and that in working with them, they better understand what a historic window looks like, and the features and characteristics that we're hoping to achieve. I think that then if we can do it right, maybe competition will help drive the price down a little bit, and we get a better product and something that aligns with what is a good replacement window. I see some things happening in the neighborhood in Kanema, and some of it I look at it and say, whoa, this is a historic contributing house. And I don't know that anybody has really ever said anything or contributed in any way. And some of this stuff, it disappoints me, and I don't know what to say or do, and therefore I haven't said or done anything individually on my own. I don't think it's appropriate. So, but it concerns me, and that's one of the reasons why I think we should be move ahead and be more proactive in identifying what is right and what should be done, rather than leave it up to chance.
Okay, well, maybe if you want to maybe take point on that, you could do some research or initial work, and then if have something to present or share, could coordinate with Kelly to schedule it for a working session.
I would like to try to see if I could initiate something, and if I would, in concert with everyone else. This is just my hope. I just see things happening, and I think it happens because we have failed to identify real design parameters, and that leaves an open door and brings in question and even lawsuits. I think we need to do better.
So if the board wants to hold a work session in the future, just let me know, like when you'd like to add that to your agenda, and I can make some space for it and put it on an upcoming agenda. And I'm happy to share some of the sources and resources that I've referenced when reviewing applications to try and better understand window replacements, and then, for new construction, what products are out there. So I can send that around. It is complicated. And I think Paul, more clarity would be very helpful, especially given that our reference point, Marvin Integrity, is actually no longer a product in the Marvin line. And so, that it's not helpful at this point. It's not very helpful for us to use that as a point of reference. And I think that we can probably improve upon that. But it gets really complicated, and God knows how many window brochures I've looked at and not been able to ascertain anything relevant to HRB. So the salesmen are not helpful generally, because they're not thinking about, they're not thinking about the details that you all are concerned about, and that information is not in the brochures either. And so I don't know that the window companies are going to necessarily be the right source of information, but maybe we can find someone out there who can tell us what we want to know.
Well, maybe we could have also recruit Icon or some of the other contractors that are working in our area to help us. I just would like to help the consumer and us come together with a good product that's reasonably priced, that is as close as we can to what should be historic design of a window in size, dimension, and all the physical external components of it that make it look appropriate. And if we could get some people to come together and where we can just try to talk it out and get it through and get to some of the people, and if they, wow, let's work to try to get something created that does not detract.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's worthy project. So Paul, if you want to consider yourself the windows czar, of acre.
That's not exactly what I hope to be or anything. I just would like to think that we could do better.
Well, maybe, yeah, I guess, you know, if you want to do a survey of different models or something and come up with maybe a draft of where you think that reference point could be, something like that, then we can have a, scheduled work session. And
If we can get to some point where we've got something we can look at it, or we can get some people agreement, say, well, I could produce something like that. That would be great. And just, let's see what we can come up with. And there's got to be people out there that can do it.
okay. Very good. Well, Kelly, I guess maybe if you want to circulate any of those materials you mentioned that you have, and we'll go from there.
That's all I have.
Okay. Not hearing anything else, then I will adjourn the meeting at 9:10 p.m.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.